Good afternoon, YouTube. What's up? Just another day, grinding. Doing a lot of things, keeping myself busy. That's what I do. So it's a little bit better. Sorry if you can't see my full face, but what I got. I'm actually looking into buying microphones. Hopefully you guys can hear me a little bit more clearer. Should be here in the next couple of days, give or take. Amazon it's great. Anyway, let's get to it. So I made a couple videos in the past couple of weeks, mostly talking about turo stuff, talking about starting a turo, one of my suggestions for trying to be successful, giving you guys $1 million worth of stuff for $9.99, right? I think Jay-Z said something like that in the story about OJ. Something like that, $1 billion worth of $9.99, somewhere in that range. But yeah, so I just wanted to touch base and kind of talk about that video in particular. As you guys know, I'm very strong about when you're starting a Turo, starting with 2 cars is my recommendation. We talked about that. We also talked about if you're able to, start an LLC. Put cars in your business name. Now, don't let anyone tell you, because you got a lot of people out here, including other YouTubers, who they're just doing it for likes and watches. They're going to tell you that, yeah, open up an LLC, buy cars in the LLC, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. There's a process to it. Where do you go to get cars in the LLC? Banks are going to ask questions, especially nowadays, because a lot of them are on to Turo. A lot of them don't mind, but there are ones who are now, hey, you can't put your car on Turo. You know what I mean? Which is just crazy to me, because if you're making the payments, why should it matter, right? I get it. From a bank standpoint, they invested that money into you so you can have a car. And then if their investment somehow gets messed up or whatever the case may be, it becomes a tricky situation. So, listen, I get it. But, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I have 3 cars. I have 2 cars that's under my business name on Turo, and then I have 1 car, obviously my white Mercedes, which I've had that's actually my longest car that I've had now. That one's on my Turo as well. So I have 3 cars on Turo. I have 5 cars in total, but again, I have one as my daily driver. It's my SUV, my GLC. My baby's a beast. When I put it on Turo, we'll see. I may not. Just stay tuned. You may see it right here. And then I have my black C43 Mercedes, which I gave to my brother. Probably the end of the year, I'm going to switch out with him, try to get him something else. See, I'm such a nice man. Anyway, that's enough about personal stuff. Let's get down to business. Let's talk about things. So, we touched about it, right? I always recommend 2 cars when starting out for Turo. You got to be careful. You got to check your states. You got to check your banks. You got to check these things when you are purchasing cars for Turo. Because guess what? Places like New York City, for example, Turo is frowned upon. I got to do my research, but last I've heard, New York in general does not allow you to do peer-to-peer car sharing, aka Turo, and other platforms as well. There's other platforms such as car share, hire car, etc., which I don't believe New York State does not allow that. You can say that they're trying to keep their residents broke, but we're not going to discuss politics here. But I believe New York State. Now, I want to say I heard something, rumor, that Turo is working on getting into those other kind of states that don't necessarily allow it. Could be as early as this year. I'll double check that at some point. But yeah, but New York for me, I definitely feel like it's a big one. Obviously, I'm from there. I live in Florida now. Most New Yorkers. But New York is such a tourist destination. Why would you not have things like turo there? Now, don't get me wrong. You can do it in New Jersey, and then someone from New York would be like, hey, can you deliver it here for XYZ dollars? Like, personally, that's what I would do. Like, if I lived in New York and I was starting a turo, I would be based out of Jersey, and then I would just be like, yeah, I can deliver it here for XYZ amount of dollars. You know, you decide your price is, but I would do that, and essentially that's kind of how I would do it. Like, I would, again, it's just me talking, professional, but I have friends out in Jersey that will definitely allow me to store my cars, as well as have them associated with that address. Especially if you're a business person, you can just literally open up a business in Jersey, and then, obviously you got to pay taxes on both states, so you make sure to see your professionals for that, but you essentially could be operating out of Jersey and do some business in New York, obviously, because that's where all the big plays are, and where people travel the most to. Not hating on Jersey, but listen, there ain't nobody really going to Jersey other than Jersey people, okay, or people that live in New York or trying to escape New York. Let's be honest. Not hating on Jersey, love Jersey, you guys are awesome. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Big brother is New York City. Jersey's kind of like the little brother. We all know that. But anyway, I just want to touch on that. But there's a lot of states, not a lot of states, but there's a few states that they do not allow that, as well as a few banks who do not allow that. Make sure to a certain degree that when you're opening up a business and you plan on doing, I like to call it transportation. Make sure you kind of specify. You talk to the bank. You make them aware, right? If you have a business plan set out, that's one of the things that you want to talk to them about. Make sure that they're not one of those banks who kind of frowning upon turo. Because essentially what will happen is that they will come and take the car if they find out it's on turo. So you want to be somewhat real with the banks. You want to be kind of discussing these things to make sure that they're, listen, let them know, hey, you're going to get your money plus more, for financing me for a car. Just let them, make them aware. Like, I'm in the works right now trying to get Porsche Panorama. Yes, that will be on turo. 4S, love it, bees. Of course I'm going to drive it. That's what I do. I love to drive my cars. I don't know about you guys, but I drive my cars. And yeah, we'll be on turo, and I know it will move very well. Like right now, my Porsche Macan GTS, the payments are about $1,000. I'm not ashamed, like other hosts, to tell you what my payments are, what my finance cars for. Payments are about $1,000, way in my area of affordability. But the Macan GTS, guess what? Guess how much it brings me per month? It brings me almost $3,000 a month. You do the math, and that's just off that car. We don't even talk about the other cars, but it brings me about $3,000 a month, which is very nice. It's just constantly booked, so it's out. People want it. I know that if I buy a Porsche Panorama, it will probably be a similar or same scenario where the payments will be about the same. Because I like to do research. I don't just go buy cars. Like, you want to make sure you're we're going to talk about this in a couple seconds, but anyway, let's talk about the Porsche Panorama. I know it would be a similar or same situation where, it essentially will be probably making me $1,500 to $2,000 over the car payments. So, that's, in some way, over the car payment insurance, where in some way that, that's just pretty much all profit, really. I wouldn't say every single penny, but at least if we're talking about $2,000 over the payment, or $2,000 over the payment in insurance, I would say maybe $1,700 of that is is pure profit. So same thing, like that's why I'm looking into the Porsche Panorama and really trying to do that, because that essentially will be a very profitable car to buy for your business as a tour host. Why wouldn't you want to do that? You know, I personally am all about right now, especially as we go into summer, trying to make a minimum of $1,500 profit per car. That's what I'm trying to do. You know, obviously it depends on what car, it depends on your monthly payments, but with me doing my research, I really try to stick within that ballpark of no more than essentially $1,000 for the monthly payments. Could it be $1,080? Yeah, you know, not a big deal, but I want to stick within that ballpark, or even less, because I buy mostly luxury cars, so that's why I'm saying that. So a lot of the cars I'm buying, they're luxury cars, and they're not overpriced or overvalued, because I'm simply not buying overpriced or overvalued cars. I don't mind traveling to another state to go purchase my cars if that needs to be the case, because here in Florida, a lot of cars are overvalued and overpriced. You don't want to get into that game where you're buying overvalued cars, because when the market's somewhat normalized one day, and it will, could be a year from now, whatever, what's going to happen is you're going to see your car value decrease instantly, just drop. I think because of places like Turo is the reason why car values are so high in today's world. You know, because essentially people are buying cars right and left, especially here in Florida. And guess what? They are using them on platforms like Turo, on platforms like HireCar, on platforms like CarShare, etc. This is a thing, you know, here in Florida. When you're talking about a state that is very tourism based, how do you make money? Well, you make money off of tourism based businesses and things that accommodate those businesses and those tourists and things of that nature. So, you know, I live in Central Florida. We are forever going to have Walt Disney World unless something dramatic happens. But we are forever going to have Walt Disney World, which means that people are going to be traveling here quite often. You know, and they're going to be traveling bunches. And so, in order for you to be successful, you need to just start a business. Again, do your research. Every state is different. Every country is different. But do your research, you know, and you'll learn real quick that what's best for you as you're starting a business in 2022, 2023, etc. But anyway, but just talking kind of about Turo, you know, obviously, like I said, you guys know my recommendations. 2 cars minimum when starting. And then if you can, put it under your business name, talk to banks, and build that relationship. You know, 2 of my cars that I brought wasn't because I had the best credit. Credit's good. But it wasn't because I had the best credit or, you know, inquiries or a mother trucker. But it wasn't because I had the best credit or anything like that nature. It was simply because I had a great relationship with the bank. Established great. They said, listen, okay, so what car you want? I said, I want this one. Right? And they said, okay, well, and I told them the 3 cars, the 3 models, the 3 cars that I was looking at that were within a specific price range. And they said, okay, we can do it for you. And I said, cool. Right? They said, we know you guys bring money, et cetera, et cetera. Account has always been good, yada, yada, yada. Right? And so they were like, yeah, we can do it for you. And so they're like, yeah, we can do it for you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to go to whatever dealership I choose and pick the best car. So obviously, I was doing my research, and I did not want to pay over 70 for this. This is actually this car. I didn't want to pay over 70. This car is my personal car, but I'll tell you about my other car. But I didn't for this car. We brought it with the bank. I didn't want to pay over 70. It wasn't happening, right? Like I've seen a lot of places where in a 2020, 2021 GLC AMG 43 coupe for 80. You know, for 80. When the newer ones, the newer 2022s were like 72. Starting price. You see what I mean? Like, and this was used. The used for 80, right? And the brand new was 72. Obviously, you want to kind of stay away from 2022s because they seem to just have all kinds of problems. Like I know it's cool having a new car, but if you're doing it for your business, just stay away from 2021s and 22s. Try to stick to 18 to 20s. I think that's probably best. But anyway, going back to it, yeah, there was a lot of cars, especially here in Florida, whether South Florida, Central Florida, North Florida. There's a lot of these models, you know, with the mileage between 20,000 to about 45,000, where they were about 80K. And clearly, and listen, I've seen one that I was eyeing and it was beautiful, all that stuff, and it was 81,000, and I was like, man, I really don't want to pay 80,000. I really don't want to be paying 1,200, 1,300 monthly payments. I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to do that. It makes sense. You're going to overpay for this car, or me, in my scenario, I'm going to overpay for this car, even though if I would put it on Turo, it probably would do really good. But still, I would be working hard to make that payment and then have less profit. See, as a business person, I'm not an expert. I'm fairly new to business, being a business owner. But that math don't make sense, right? That math don't make sense. So you're going to overpay for a car that essentially is where you can't put the price down. So, for example, how I do the math, right? It's like this. So check this out. How I do the math. So if I buy a car that the monthly payment is $800, right? That means that $800 payment should be a fairly nice car, correct? Right? So $800, you're paying $800, you shouldn't be driving a Honda, okay? You shouldn't be driving a Nissan. You shouldn't be driving in a Toyota, right? You should have a mid-level, sort of luxury car. $800, obviously this depends on credit, a bunch of factors, but $800 essentially should get you into most Mercedes, most BMWs, most mid-tier luxury cars. Like that sound? But anyway, 800 should get you into most mid-level, I want to say, mid-level tier cars. You shouldn't be riding around in a Honda Odyssey $800 a month. That means two things. You have shitty credit, and perhaps you should fix that. I'm no credit expert. I know some people who are. But you should probably fix that, so it helps things. And then you should probably try to look into refinancing that and within 6 months to see if you can get that full over. Because at the end of the day, if you're driving in a $800, let's just say a Honda Accord, let's say you got the nicer model, but you're paying $800 for it. If you're driving around an $800 Honda Accord and you're like, yeah, I want to put this on Turo, yada, yada, yada. A Honda Accord, for the most part, and again, it depends on markets, and quote me down to the T, but a Honda Accord will mostly get you roughly about $50 to $60 per day. After Turo takes their cut, depending on what plan you go with, most people go with the 75. So let's assume that. Depending on you go with that plan, that's going to leave you like, if you do 60, you're probably talking about 40, 45, right? Let's just say 45. That means that even if you got 50s, let's just go best case scenario and say you got 50. Even if you got 50, you need to rent that car out a lot of freaking days to get that 800. That's not good math. That's not good math. I'll tell you right now. Now, everybody's situation is different. Some people are just like, listen, I want a nice car, I rent it out so it pays for itself, and the other times that it's not rented out, I'm driving. I do that. My car's been rented. So it's been tough for me. But yeah, like I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. But we're here to make money. No. Because if we're not, you're watching the wrong channel. Because this channel is about making money. And trying to show you guys the best way to go about that. So, anyways, but you want to make sure that you're kind of this truck is killing me. You want to make sure that you're the most profitable that you can be. Because you don't want to run into a situation where your car's not being rented and then you coming out of pocket $800 on Honda. Seriously, it's a serious issue. It really is. It really is. I think you guys know how serious. You're paying $800. And there are people who do it. I'm saying this scenario because I know that there's somebody out here that's doing it. They probably think it's normal. But it's not. I'm here to tell you it's not. But anyway, let's just cut to the chase. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I got to gas up. Driving a premium car that gas go fast. It's not fun. It's not fun. Anyway, but when you're starting a Turo, you really want to just, these are the things you want to do. Try to put things under your business name. Why? Because for tax purposes, you can write some of this stuff off, which is very nice to save you some money and save you some headaches a little bit. But then also, you're starting Turo, you make sure you know what your market is before you go and make these decisions. If you live in a beautiful touristy area that is always visited pretty much all year round, maybe except for 1 month, let's say, then you're going to do great. You're going to do awesome on Turo. Make sure you buy cars that fit that location. So if you know your place is similar to like Miami, where it's a high-end, well, then go get a couple high-end cars if you can, like I said. Don't come through with no Toyotas, because they're not worth that much. Because people are looking for the higher-end stuff. Or if you're in a place, somewhere in California, you got a wide range of ways that you can go about doing some of those things, which is cool and very nice to see. But again, it just really depends on your market. Just make sure you guys are doing your research. I'm not here to tell you about each and every market. I'm here to tell you to do your research and figure out the best solution. You guys can always comment below. I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to kind of give you pointers and things of that nature. Because I'm familiar with most states, which I assume most Americans are, right? Where I can kind of throw you some pointers and say, here's what I kind of suggest, etc., etc. Again, no professional, but been this for a couple months to a year, and so far it seems to be going pretty good. Not too bad in business. All right, anyway, YouTube guys, peace. See you later.